This is your report from both sides of the pond. Get it? Ducks, beavers, both sides of the pond? Okay, fine. I'll stick to dad jokes.
Now joining me on the Oregon Man Clinics hotline is our weekly Oregon recruiting correspondent, Max Torres, publisher of Ducks Digest, covering the Ducks for Sports Illustrated at Fan Nation. He's also the host of the Ducks Dish podcast, covering all things Oregon athletics. Max, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Justin. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Glad to talk to you. Let's just jump in and talk about some of the visitors that are coming to Autzen this weekend to watch the Ducks take on Coach Prime and the Buffs. It's going to be a big weekend for the Ducks. Let's start with 2024 four-star defensive lineman Jericho Johnson from Fairfield, California. He's had Oregon in his top three with a couple other Big Ten schools, future Big Ten schools, I should say, Washington and USC. And he'll be making the visit to Autzen Stadium. What kind of difference maker is he?
Yeah, Jericho Johnson is just about as big as a name as you'll find on the West Coast, certainly along the defensive line. 6'4", 300 pounds, definitely checks that box. And he's a big-time target for the Ducks, especially with Aiden Breland, five-star defensive lineman out of Mater Dei, heavily considering Georgia, and then Miami as well. Jericho Johnson's a guy that Oregon's been wanting to get on back on campus for a while now. So he's a difference maker for sure. And I think that Oregon feels good about where they stand right now. I think that their main competition in this one is Washington. So Kalen DeBoer and the Huskies are off to a hot start on the field this year. But Oregon's got extensive ties in California, so I think that they have a really realistic shot in this one. And you'd love to add a guy like Jericho Johnson to this defensive line haul that already features some pretty serious talent in Zadavian Sims and Keon Gray.
So Oregon's trying to put their finishing touches on the 2024 class, and one guy that's going to be at Autzen as well is running back Jason Brown Jr. out of Seattle, Washington. I know you're a big fan of him. How big of a signing would he be for the Ducks?
He'd be a big signing, no doubt, Justin, and he's an interesting recruitment to follow lately because I had my prediction on Oregon for Jason Brown Jr., the top uncommitted running back in the entire country for the 2024 recruiting class out of O'Dea High School. He's working from the top three right now. You got Oregon, Washington, and Michigan State in the mix. Some people have predicted him to Michigan State, but with the recent news around Mel Tucker being fired, it looks like this one might be swinging back into Oregon's favor. I didn't move my pick that I made before the Tucker firing, so I'm still feeling pretty good about this pick right now. I know the Ducks really like him. Definitely a little bit of a smaller back, kind of around 5'8", 5'9", 190 pounds, but he's an electric playmaker, has great vision, good burst, super versatile guy out of the backfield, can affect the passing game as well. But kind of the recent intel that I'm tracking and kind of what I'm hearing out of the Northwest is that Washington is kind of trying to capitalize on this window opening a little bit, if you will, in his recruitment. So he's a Seattle kid. That's the hometown school, but Washington really hasn't done a good job of keeping their top guys in state. A lot of them, in fact, are headed to Oregon. So I know that Oregon would like to kind of get him back on campus, and they are, to kind of strengthen that relationship and just keep things looking solid with Jason Brown. He was in town for Saturday Night Live in January. That's a big camp that the Ducks hold every year, so always good to get a top guy back on campus, and they would love to add kind of a lightning type of combo to that backfield with Dejon Riggs kind of being the thunder that they already have committed in this class.
So I certainly know Oregon fans wouldn't mind taking a prospect out of Seattle, Washington. You talked to another top Oregon recruit as well recently, Jaden Johnson, cornerback from the 2025 class. What did you learn about his visit to Eugene this weekend?
Yeah, I think you might mean Jaden Hudson.
Oh, yeah, excuse me.
I got you. He is an elite safety out of Pittsburgh, California, in the East Bay. That's where Jaden Rashada went. Duck fans will remember when Kenny Dillingham and Oregon were recruiting him in the 2023 recruiting class. But Jaden Hudson's going to be heading to Eugene this weekend, and it's an important visit as Oregon kind of continues to put more emphasis and attention on the 2025 recruiting class, excuse me. He is the number 66 player in the country. So when you think about Dan Lanning and Chris Hampton, the safety coach, the kind of defense that they want to build at Oregon, I think keeping those top West Coast guys home on the West Coast, Jaden Hudson is definitely a priority for them. He's got 27 reported scholarship offers on the table. He's a pretty big DB at 6'2", a little bit on the lighter side at 175 pounds, but he's really liking what he's seeing from Oregon, and he's got some other big-time schools coming after him. He was telling me that he's also hearing from schools like USC, Ohio State, Washington. So always great to get a priority guy back on campus, and this is his first time seeing a game at Autzen. So that was one of the things that he told me he was most excited for.
There you go.
This weekend was getting a look at the game this weekend and just soaking in that atmosphere.
Yeah, certainly the atmosphere of Autzen Stadium, something that you have to experience in person. Let's move to the 2026 class, a guy that's going to come to Autzen. 5-star Scottsdale, Arizona, defensive lineman, Tony Cumberland. This guy looks like he could be special. And the Ducks look like they're in a pretty good spot with him right now. What do you think about their chances?
Yeah, I definitely really like where Oregon stands with Tony Cumberland, 5-star defensive lineman, 6'4", 250 pounds out of the state of Arizona. Super early in this recruitment, right? You know, you said it yourself, he's only a 2026, so he's currently a sophomore in high school. But with the way recruiting goes nowadays, Justin, it's never too early to start identifying talent and trying to get in the mix here, because I think that longevity and loyalty and being one of those earlier offers kind of comes into play when you're coming to make a decision, you know, later on in your high school career. So Dan Lanning and the Ducks have done a great job of prioritizing the state of Arizona. Got a trio of guys from Arizona last year, and you got Luke Moga committed out of the Phoenix area this year. So getting a guy like Cumberland back on campus is great. He's been to Eugene before, so you just want to make sure that he knows he's a priority of this Oregon staff, and I think they've done a really good job of building those strong relationships with him, and he's one of those pieces that they'd love to add as they look to continue building a strong defense under Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoi.
So it's a good opportunity with Colorado coming to town to talk about the transfer portal and what's happened with that, I guess I should say. And Oregon has done a lot with the transfer portal. Obviously, Colorado has done pretty much a historic makeover with the transfer portal. What do you make of what's going on with how that changes recruiting in the landscape of college football, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a really interesting development, especially at a school like Colorado, because it looks like Deion's kind of doing what Lincoln Riley did at USC this past cycle when he took over the Trojans program. Just it really, I think, closes the gap in terms of how quickly you're able to turn a program around, and it certainly looks like that's what's going on in Boulder right now. They're off to a 3-0 start, and a lot of people want to talk about what Deion's doing, but I mean, Dan Lanning and the Ducks have overhauled their roster tremendously this offseason, bringing in some really big pieces that are already making an impact. Tyree Jackson has a couple of picks. Justin Jacobs, we hope to see him this weekend. He's been a little bit banged up. So I think that the transfer portal is really making an impact on today's game, and it's kind of at the point where you got to use it, utilize it, or maybe you risk getting left behind.
Max Torres, publisher of Ducks Digest for Sports Illustrated at Fan Nation and host of the Ducks Dish podcast. I appreciate you coming on again to speak with me. And what's your prediction for the game this weekend?
Yeah, my prediction for the game this weekend is 52-27. I got Oregon coming out on top. They're at home. They play their best ball when they're at home in Eugene at Autzen Stadium. Bo Nix is doing a great job with that Wilstein offense. He's taking care of the ball, so I think that'll go a long way in keeping the Colorado defense at bay. And then I think we're seeing some of that progress from the defense every week. And they got a big challenge with Shedeur Sanders coming to town this weekend, and they got some good weapons too. With those receivers, you got Weaver and Horn, so big challenge for that secondary. I think Colorado can stick around, but Oregon has the depth and will ultimately come away with a win in this one. I think the Ducks get it done in Eugene this week.
Max, really appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Justin.